The name on the mailbox read Alexandra Scott, but the person living inside the small two-bedroom house in Riverbend, Texas, felt like a stranger to that name. For as long as Alexandra could remember, she had felt trapped in a body that didn't align with the person she was inside. Growing up in a conservative town where tradition was law and deviation was a sin, she had spent her childhood suppressing the truth about herself. By outward appearances, Alexandra was everything the town expected her to be. She was polite, well-mannered, and always dressed in the floral dresses her mother picked out for her. She excelled in school, attended church every Sunday, and volunteered at the local animal shelter. Yet, beneath the surface, a storm brewed, a storm of confusion, dysphoria, and a yearning to be free. Her teenage years were a blur of discomfort and denial. She avoided mirrors as much as possible, unable to reconcile the reflection with the identity she held deep within. Every prom, every family gathering, and every whispered comment from relatives about when she'd find a nice boy to settle down with felt like a weight pressing her deeper into the role she was expected to play. Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel and motivates me to keep bringing you more amazing content. Now, let's continue with the content. Her parents, Margaret and James, were proud of their daughter, but their love was conditional. Hinged on Alexandra, maintaining the facade of the perfect young woman. Margaret often spoke of how one day Alexandra would marry a respectable man and give them grandchildren. The mere thought filled Alexandra with dread. She didn't want to marry a man, wear a white dress, or live the life laid out for her. She wanted something else, something more. It wasn't until her early 20s, after leaving Riverbend for college, that Alexandra began to explore the possibility of living authentically. College in Austin was a revelation. The city, with its vibrant LGBTQ+ community, offered a glimpse of a life where people could be themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. It was there, in the anonymity of the bustling city, that Alexandra met people like her, people who had walked the same path and come out on the other side. One night, after a particularly emotional conversation with a friend who had transitioned, Alexandra sat in her tiny dorm room and stared at her reflection in the mirror. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine what life would be like if she embraced who she truly was. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. The decision to transition wasn't made lightly. Alexandra knew it would mean leaving behind the life she had known, and possibly severing ties with her family. But the alternative, continuing to live a lie, was no longer an option. She began the process slowly, taking hormones and adopting a new name, Alex. The first time she introduced herself as Alex to a stranger, her heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. The name felt right, like slipping into a comfortable pair of shoes after years of walking in heels that didn't fit. Each day brought small victories, facial hair beginning to sprout, a deeper voice, and a sense of belonging within her own skin. But transitioning wasn't just about physical changes. It was about reclaiming a life that had been on hold for too long. Alex took steps to distance himself from his past, legally changing his name and moving to a new part of the city where no one knew him as Alexandra. He found a job as a graphic designer, a profession that allowed him to express his creativity while working independently. Despite the challenges, moments of self-doubt, awkward conversations, and the ever-present fear of rejection, Alex felt more alive than he ever had before. He forged new friendships, built a support system, and for the first time began to envision a future that wasn't dictated by the expectations of others. Yet, the shadow of Riverbend lingered. His parents, unaware of his transition, continued to send letters addressed to Alexandra, filled with news of the town and questions about when she would return home. Alex read the letters with a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for the relationship that would never be the same, and relief that he had escaped the confines of a life that wasn't his. It was during this time of newfound freedom that Alex met Angela. Angela was unlike anyone Alex had ever known. Confident, kind, and fiercely independent. They met at a local coffee shop where Angela worked as a barista while studying to become a therapist. Their connection was instant, a spark that quickly grew into a flame. Angela admired Alex's authenticity and strength, while Alex was drawn to Angela's warmth and empathy. For the first time, Alex allowed himself to imagine the possibility of love and companionship. He didn't disclose his past right away, unsure of how Angela would react. But as their relationship deepened, the weight of the secret grew heavier. Still, Alex held onto the hope that love could bridge the gap between who he had been and who he was now. In Angela, Alex saw a future filled with promise, a life where he could finally be himself without fear or shame. But the past has a way of catching up, and in the quiet moments, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the truth, once revealed, would change everything. The decision to transition marked the beginning of a new chapter in Alex's life, but it was a journey filled with uncertainty. Every step forward required courage, and each change brought its own challenges. Yet, for the first time, Alex felt like he was moving toward a version of himself that had long been buried beneath layers of expectation and conformity. Leaving Alexandra behind wasn't just about shedding a name. It was about building a life from the ground up. The first thing Alex did was moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of Austin, where he could start fresh without the weight of familiar eyes watching. The apartment was modest, a studio with a creaky floor and a view of the alley, but it was his. In that space, he could be himself without compromise. The physical changes came slowly at first. Hormone therapy transformed his body in subtle but meaningful ways. His voice deepened, and the soft curves of his face began to sharpen. Each morning, Alex would stand in front of the bathroom mirror and trace the changes with his fingertips, marveling at the reflection that, day by day, felt more like his own. But it wasn't just about the physical transformation. Becoming Alex meant learning to navigate a world that often viewed him with suspicion or confusion. Simple tasks, like going to the grocery store or introducing himself to new people, became exercises in bravery. There were moments when a cashier's lingering glance or a stranger's pointed question would send a ripple of doubt through him. But Alex pressed on, determined to claim the life he deserved. Austin's LGBTQ+ community became a sanctuary. He found a local support group for transgender men, a space where he could share his experiences and find solace in the stories of others who had walked a similar path. It was there that Alex learned the importance of self-acceptance and resilience. The group members became his chosen family, offering advice, encouragement, and a sense of belonging he had never known. Among them was Marcus, a seasoned trans man who had transitioned years earlier. Marcus took Alex under his wing, offering guidance and support during the more difficult moments. "It gets easier," Marcus often said. "The world might not always understand us, but we understand each other, and that's enough." With Marcus's mentorship and the support of his new friends, Alex began to thrive. He landed a job as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm where his creativity and attention to detail quickly earned him recognition. The work was fulfilling, and for the first time, Alex felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. It was during a routine coffee run that Alex met Angela. She was behind the counter at a cozy cafe nestled in the heart of downtown Austin, her warm smile brightening the dimly lit space. Angela's presence was magnetic, confident yet approachable, with an air of kindness that put others at ease. "Medium roast? Black?" Angela asked, sliding the cup across the counter with practiced ease. Alex nodded, momentarily caught off guard by the sparkle in her eyes. Yeah, thank you. Their interactions were brief at first, limited to friendly exchanges over the counter, but each visit left Alex eager for the next, and he found himself making excuses to stop by the cafe more often than necessary. Angela noticed his frequent visits and the quiet, thoughtful demeanor that set him apart from the usual customers. One afternoon, Angela took the initiative. "You come here a lot," she said with a playful smile. "What's your story?" Alex hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "Just a guy trying to survive the work week," he replied with a shrug. "I'm a graphic designer." "Creative type, huh?" Angela leaned on the counter, intrigued. "I'm studying to be a therapist. Maybe one day I'll help people like you unwind from those stressful work weeks." Alex laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. "I might need that sooner rather than later." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and by the time Alex left the cafe, he had Angela's number scribbled on the back of a receipt. That night, he stared at the number, his heart a mix of excitement and anxiety. He knew that starting a relationship meant eventually confronting the question he had always feared: when is the right time to tell someone about his past? Their first date was a casual dinner at a local food truck park, where they sampled tacos and shared stories about their lives. Angela was open and candid, talking about her passion for mental health and her dream of opening a private practice one day. Alex listened intently, drawn to her ambition and the warmth in her voice. As the weeks turned into months, their relationship deepened. Angela admired Alex's quiet strength and the thoughtfulness he brought to their conversations. He was unlike anyone she had ever dated, reserved yet attentive, with a depth that intrigued her. For Alex, Angela represented everything he had longed for: acceptance, connection, and the possibility of building a life with someone who saw him for who he truly was. Yet, the weight of his secret grew heavier with each passing day. He wanted to tell Angela about his past, but fear held him back. What if she didn't understand? What if it changed the way she looked at him? One evening, as they walked hand in hand through a park, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, Angela turned to him. "You know, I feel like I know so much about you, but there's still this mystery," she said gently. "Is there something you're not telling me?" Alex's heart raced. The moment he had been dreading was drawing closer. He squeezed her hand, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. "There is," he admitted softly, "but I need a little more time." Angela nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "Whenever you're ready." Alex knew that the time would come when he would have to confront his past head-on, but for now, in the quiet moments shared with Angela, he allowed himself to believe in the possibility of a future built on love, trust, and the hope that she would accept him for who he truly was. The wedding had been small, but beautiful. Close friends, a few colleagues, and Angela's family gathered in a rustic venue just outside Austin. Angela wore a simple yet elegant lace gown, her dark hair flowing in soft curls over her shoulders. Alex stood beside her, looking sharp in a tailored suit, his hands trembling slightly as he held hers. For Alex, the day was surreal, a moment he had never imagined for himself during those years of living as someone he wasn't. Standing there, exchanging vows with Angela, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and hope. This was his fresh start, a chance to build a life free from the shadows of his past. Angela saw Alex as her perfect partner, thoughtful, patient, and attentive in ways she had never experienced before. Their love story had unfolded seamlessly, as if fate had gently guided them toward each other. When Alex promised her forever, Angela believed him with her whole heart. The early days of their marriage were filled with quiet joy. They moved into a cozy townhouse in a quiet neighborhood, decorating the space with a blend of their tastes. Angela's love for minimalism and Alex's eye for artistic details. Mornings were spent sipping coffee together on the balcony, and evenings were filled with laughter as they cooked dinner side by side. Angela often marveled at how easy life with Alex felt. Unlike previous relationships that had been marked by tension or unmet expectations, their union was built on mutual respect and understanding. Alex's calm presence grounded her, while Angela's vibrant energy brought light into their home. Yet, in the quiet moments when Angela wasn't looking, Alex's mind wandered to the secret he still hadn't revealed. He had promised himself that he would tell her after the wedding, but each time the opportunity arose, fear held him back. Their life was so perfect. Why risk shattering it? Angela noticed the occasional flicker of hesitation in Alex's eyes, but dismissed it as the normal adjustments of newlywed life. She trusted him completely and believed that whatever he was holding back, they would face it together when the time came. But life has a way of unraveling even the most carefully constructed facades. One evening, while cleaning out the attic to make space for storage, Angela stumbled upon a box tucked away in a corner. It was unmarked and covered in a thin layer of dust, as if it hadn't been touched in years. Curiosity piqued, Angela opened the box and found a collection of old photographs, letters, and documents. She sat cross-legged on the attic floor, sifting through the contents. The photos were of a young woman, smiling, posing with friends, attending what appeared to be a high school dance. Angela's brow furrowed as she studied the images. The woman bore a striking resemblance to Alex, yet it wasn't him. Beneath the photographs were legal documents bearing the name Alexandra Scott. Angela's heart skipped a beat. She carefully unfolded one of the letters, her hands trembling as she read the words, written in a familiar hand. "Dear Alex, I'm so proud of the person you're becoming. I know it hasn't been easy, but you've shown so much strength." The letter was signed by someone named Marcus. Angela's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of a story she hadn't been told. Who was Alexandra? And why had Alex kept this part of his life hidden from her? She placed the contents back into the box, her thoughts swirling with confusion and a growing sense of unease. The perfect life she thought she knew now felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. That night, Angela lay awake beside Alex, staring at the ceiling. The warmth of his presence, once a source of comfort, now felt unfamiliar. Questions echoed in her mind, but she wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. She needed time to process what she had discovered. As the days passed, Angela observed Alex with new eyes. She noticed the subtle ways he avoided certain conversations, or the fleeting moments of sadness that crossed his face. The man she loved was still there, but now she realized there was a part of him she had never known, a part that he had chosen to keep hidden. The weight of the secret hung heavy in the air, an unspoken tension that neither of them acknowledged. Angela wrestled with her emotions, confusion, betrayal, and a lingering fear of what this revelation might mean for their future. She loved Alex, but trust, once fractured, is not easily repaired. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Angela finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but tinged with uncertainty. "Alex, there's something I need to ask you." Alex turned to her, his heart sinking. He knew this moment was inevitable. "What is it?" Angela took a deep breath, her eyes searching his for answers. "Who is Alexandra Scott?" The question hung in the air like a thundercloud, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Alex's chest tightened, and he looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "She was me," he whispered, "before I transitioned." Angela's breath caught in her throat. The truth, though suspected, hit her with the force of a tidal wave. She felt a whirlwind of emotions, shock, confusion, and a deep aching sadness. Alex reached for her hand, but Angela pulled away, her mind reeling. "Why didn't you tell me? I was afraid," Alex admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "Afraid of losing you, afraid you wouldn't see me the same way." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "I trusted you, Alex. I thought I knew everything about you." "You do," he said softly. "This doesn't change who I am." But for Angela, it did. The man she married was still the man she loved, but the foundation of their relationship now felt unstable. She needed time to understand, to forgive, and to decide if love could truly withstand the weight of hidden truths. As Angela retreated to the bedroom, Alex sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the silence around him echoing with uncertainty. The perfect beginning they had shared now teetered on the edge of something neither of them could fully grasp, a future shaped by the choices they had yet to make. Angela spent the next few days in a haze. The shock of Alex's revelation rattled her to her core. Despite what she had told him, that it didn't change who he was, her mind couldn't help but spin. The truth about Alex's past had cracked open the door to a life she had never imagined, and she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through it. She tried to carry on as if nothing had changed, but each conversation felt strained, as if they were both walking around a delicate glass object, afraid to break it. Angela was often distracted, her thoughts drifting back to the box she had found in the attic. She had so many questions. Who was Marcus? How long had Alex known about his identity? Why had he kept this part of himself hidden for so long? Her curiosity gnawed at her, but she didn't know if she was ready to push further. She didn't know if she could handle more revelations. She had told herself that love was about accepting one another, flaws, secrets, and all. But the reality of that belief was harder to live out. She found herself questioning everything. One evening, while Alex was at work, Angela sat in the living room, the box of old photos and documents spread out before her. She picked up one of the letters from Marcus. The familiar handwriting spoke to her, as though it were a bridge to the past she knew little about. The more she read, the more questions formed. There was one letter in particular that seemed to hold more significance, a letter where Marcus wrote about a moment of deep personal struggle for Alex, describing how difficult it had been for Alex to decide whether to transition. The letter mentioned how supportive Marcus had been, how Alex had questioned if anyone would truly accept him for who he was. Angela's heart ached as she read the words. She could see the weight of Alex's journey in the pages. Years of confusion, pain, and eventual self-realization. Yet she also saw the fear and hesitation in Marcus's words, the hope that one day Alex would find peace with himself. But there was a line in the letter that chilled Angela to the bone. "I'm afraid of what will happen if Alex comes out to Angela. She's so perfect for him. But I fear her reaction. I fear the truth might tear them apart." Angela closed her eyes, trying to absorb the gravity of Marcus's words. The letter had been written long before she had come into the picture, but it felt as if the past had now become an insurmountable wall between her and Alex. She set the letter down and let the silence fill the room. It was as if everything she had known about her marriage was being readable. When Alex came home that night, he found Angela sitting in the living room, her expression unreadable. The tension in the air was thick, and his heart sank when he saw the box on the coffee table. "I read the letters," Angela said, her voice steady but quiet. Alex's stomach turned. "Angela, I don't know what to say," she interrupted, standing up. "I want to understand, Alex, I do, but I don't know if I can." Alex opened his mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. How could he explain a lifetime of buried pain in a single conversation? How could he help her see that the person she loved had always been him, even when he hadn't fully known who he was. Angela's eyes softened, but there was an unmistakable pain in them now. I thought I married someone who was open with me, who trusted me. But now, I feel like I don't know you anymore, or maybe I never did. Angela, Alex pleaded, moving closer, but she stepped back. I'm still me. I'm still the person you love. This isn't something I could just tell you overnight. It's been my whole life. I know, Angela whispered, her voice cracking, but I need to think. I don't know if I can keep pretending everything is okay. Alex stood in the dimly lit room, staring at the woman he had married, the woman he had believed would accept him for all he was. But now, even the love between them felt uncertain, fragile, and with that uncertainty came a growing fear, a fear of losing Angela, of losing everything he had worked so hard to build. Days passed in a blur of tension. Alex and Angela barely spoke, and when they did, their conversations were polite but distant. Angela's once unshakable belief in their love had been rocked to its core, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that their relationship was slipping through his fingers. He had never been good at confrontation, and now the truth that he had so carefully concealed for so long was threatening to unravel everything. Yet, every time he looked at Angela, he saw the love in her eyes, the same love that had driven him to take the leap of telling her the truth. But now, that truth seemed like an insurmountable obstacle. One evening, Alex returned from work to find Angela sitting in their bedroom, her face pale and drawn. She didn't look up as he entered, her focus instead on the letter she was holding in her hands, the same letter he had tried to keep hidden, the letter from Marcus. I couldn't keep avoiding it, Angela said, her voice quiet but firm. I read the rest of the letters. I read everything, Alex. Alex's chest tightened. Angela? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you wait until now? Her voice was trembling with a mixture of emotions, and she buried her hands in her pockets to come up with the right response. I read the rest of the letters. I read everything, Alex. She prayed that the time had come, her voice faltering with emotion. She froze on the word. Didn't you trust me enough to tell me sooner? I wanted to, I swear, Alex said, his voice raw. But I was afraid of losing you. I didn't know how you would react. I didn't want to hurt you. Angela looked at him, her eyes filled with a blend of anger and sadness. You don't get it, do you? By not telling me, you've already hurt me. The trust is gone, Alex. How do I look at you the same way after this? Alex's heart cracked, the weight of her words sinking deep. He wanted to explain, to make her understand how difficult it had been, but it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no going back. I'm sorry, Alex whispered, his voice breaking. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But the words fell flat. Angela shook her head, standing up and walking toward the door. I don't know if I can do this, she said, her voice hollow. I need space. I need to think. The days that followed were suffocating. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, felt cold and empty. Angela had moved out temporarily, seeking refuge with a close friend while she tried to process everything. Alex was left in the silence, the walls closing in around him. The life he had carefully constructed, the love he had fought so hard for, seemed to be crumbling beyond repair. Despite his desperation to make things right, to convince Angela that he was still the same person, he couldn't shake the truth that perhaps he had done irreparable damage. Love, he realized, was fragile. And secrets, no matter how well intended, had a way of destroying it. Weeks turned into months, and there were no signs of reconciliation. Alex threw himself into his work, trying to distract himself from the growing emptiness. But every corner of his life reminded him of Angela, her absence haunting the spaces where they had once shared their lives. One evening, Alex found himself standing at the coffee shop where it all began, the place where he and Angela had met. He had hoped for some kind of closure, some sign that things might return to the way they once were, but when he walked in, it was as if the world had shifted irreparably. The chair where Angela had sat, the smile she had shared with him across the counter, it was all gone. And the bitter truth hit him with unrelenting force. She was never coming back. The news arrived on a cold, gray morning. Angela had been found, dead, in a manner so violent that it sent shockwaves through the community. Police were still piecing together the details, but rumors swirled: betrayal, jealousy, heartbreak. There was talk of a fatal confrontation. Something had snapped, and Angela had taken her own life. Alex could hardly process the news, and his mind, once capable of rational thought, was now a jumble of disbelief and horror. He couldn't fathom it. How had things gotten so far? In the days following Angela's death, Alex was left alone in a world that seemed increasingly unfamiliar. He had lost the love of his life, and all that was left was a lingering, empty silence. The questions remained. Could he have done more? Could he have been honest sooner? Could love ever overcome betrayal? Or was it all just a cruel twist of fate? The answer, as Alex soon realized, was more complicated than he could ever imagine. This story, ending with Angela's tragic death, asks a fundamental question about the fragility of trust, love, and identity. What happens when the weight of the past cannot be reconciled with the present?